I am very excited to introduce Jim Rooney, whom I consider a friend. Jim has been a fixture in Guelph, Guelph and Guelph sports for many decades. He has co-owned and was the president and governor of the Ontario Hockey League's Guelph Storm. And who doesn't like the Guelph Storm? Hands raised. None, Jim, none. Oh, Murray. Murray, who do you like?
Pardon?
Who do you like?
Everybody.
Ontario Hockey League Guelph Storm from 1991 to 2006. Jim was also the chairman of the Board of Governors of the OHL from 1995 to 2001. And his Guelph Storm, they won 2 Ontario Hockey League titles in 1998 and 2004, and many of you remember that. And they participated in 4 Memorial Cups, including one where we hosted here in Guelph. That was not enough, though, for Jim. He later became owner of the Guelph Royals of the Inter-County Baseball League after serving as the league's commissioner from 2001 till 2009. In addition to that, he was the principal of Bishop Mac and Our Lady of Lourdes. And I know that Justin Funk, he had mentioned Justin Funk was one of his students. And so Justin isn't here on the call, but we'd embarrass him a little bit. So maybe he'll join us later. I got to know Jim as a friend in my role as volunteer co-chair, and Jim then was the overall co-chair of our 2002 Ontario Winter Games, and some of you might remember that as well. Jim's humor and his leadership served us so well and has served our community throughout the years. Jim was the educational consultant and motivational coach for Team Canada's under-18 gold medal winning team in Russia in 2003. Applause, applause, applause. And who doesn't remember that? That was a banner year for our country. He was elected to the Guelph Sports Hall of Fame in 2017 to recognize his outstanding contribution as a builder in Guelph sports over the many decades, and I would suggest a builder of our community as well. And one of the things that keeps him busy right now, I would say that he's probably semi-retired in other areas, is a fun and informative podcast with 2 of his closest friends. And I'm going to just play a snippet for you right now. Bear with me as I share the screen. Are you going to share it? Are you going to share it, Rick? You're on there already, so maybe I'll have you share it.
Oh, okay. Well, let me. No, you've already got it going.
Okay.
You're already in place with it.
When I have, when I pull up the share screen, I get you. So let me just see here. Just bear with me for 1 second.
All right. If you can't, I will.
Yes, please.
Okay, let's see where I've got it. I want to go.
I tested it and it worked beautifully.
Okay.
Can you turn up your volume a little bit, Rick?
Let me find it.
I can hear it, Rick. Can everyone see the PowerPoint? Can you see the PowerPoint? Yeah, great.
Yep.
Okay, so one of the things that I wanted to ask Jim about is very interesting. We might play the podcast a little bit later. I wanted to ask Jim. Now, Jim, I learned from Tom Funk, was a Rotarian many years ago. And I just wondered what Jim was doing. We know what he was doing, but what took you so long to get back to Rotary, Jim? It's been a while. When did you become a Rotarian? When did you become
I had the privilege of, thanks Marva, and thanks for your personal and generous introduction. and to President Carroll and Assistant District Governor Darlene, Rotarians and guests, thanks for this opportunity. I had the privilege of being introduced to Rotary in 1973 by Barry Cullen, who was my sponsor. And it was just phenomenal. And for 20 years, what took me so long was about 1993, as I was president of Canadian Association of Principals. And then I became chairman of the Ontario Hockey League. And we had a variety of challenges, and it was important still to give time to family and 4 growing kids and a beautiful spouse, Patty. So I just had to take a time out, because that's what we do in sports. We take time out.
Well, that's a long, long time out, Jim. 1973 until now. I bet you have a couple of students in Rotary now, other than Justin Funk.
Yes, and actually, you know what we do as teammates, and is that we need to get a piece of paper out, and we need to get a pencil out or a pen. And what I'd like all the members to do today is, on the screen, hopefully you see kind of 4 pillars: family, friend, neighbor, and community. And beside each one, I'd like you to put a name down of who in your life and part of your journey, as Tom suggested, is a teammate, and a great teammate. And we'll come back to this later on in the presentation. But as you do it, you can do it during the presentation. If someone or some jumps out at you, that'd be great. But because we always go through life with great teammates.
Yes.
Teammates make us who we are and help us to become champions along the way. And so I just want to invite you to do a family, a friend, a neighbor, and a community person as we walk through this part of this experience today. I was privileged to land here in Guelph, thanks, Marva, in 1965. I had the honor and privilege of being hired to teach at Bishop Mac. And 1969, I married the queen of my life, Patricia Sue. We've been blessed with 4 kids, 3 gentlemen and 1 princess, and been fortunate enough to have a leadership role in education at Lourdes from 76 to 88, then at Bishop Mac as principal, from 88 to 95, back at Lourdes, and then retired in January 2000. Actually, it was just going from one phase of life to another phase of life, and that was clearly this phase of life, full-time sports. One of the things I learned is that learning never ends, and as soon as you're through learning, you're through. So I've been fortunate and blessed that some of the influences in my life early were people like Father Dave Bauer. He taught me grade 10 history. He was the founder of Hockey Canada in 1964, and just a phenomenal individual, and had a great impact and helped center and kind of direct who I was and what I could become. A couple of the distant cousins, one of them played hockey here. Walt Kloon played for the Guelph team in the 50s. Another one of my early influences in life as a young kid was Roger Nielsen. And some of you may know that name. Roger was an elementary school teacher in Leaside. I lived in Forest Hill Village, and Roger was phenomenal in terms of baseball and hockey. And later his life went, his life journey took him from junior hockey to professional hockey and it was just wonderful. But part of the life journey includes the experience of service above self. And as a young puppy in 1973, I had known Barry through Rotary, through hockey. Barry was a prominent member of, at that time, called the CBC line, Cullen, Barlow, and Cullen. And they dominated the OHA at the time. And I'd known Barry through hockey, and we happened to end up at the same parish. And one day after church, he says, "I think you should join Rotary." What? Anyway, the rest has just been phenomenal. Rotary is just, how can I say? It's all about life. And Marva, let's move into, there we go. I'd like to comment and do some linkages about kind of my teammates in Rotary. And where do I start? Well, I start with some of what I call the giants who mentored me and who were my early teammates. People like Freddie Black and Dave Kennedy, Biko Valerian, and the one and only Paul Truex. I had giants, and at that time, I should mention, it was only a men's only club. We didn't have Robin Lee in '85. I think she joined the club. We didn't have ladies as part of Rotary at the time, and so when I say my teammates, they were only, my early teammates were all young gentlemen who were just phenomenal leaders. And I had MVP people in Rotary like Charlie Whitaker and Bob Berry and Doug Gamsby and Laurie Jones, Robin Lee, Tom Funk, Bill Parker, Newt Clayton, Bernie Kiley, Larry Kelly, Rennie Pietrobon. I had so many amazing teammates that it was just phenomenal. Rotary also is clearly a family experience. Our kids, we used a phrase in our family called full-fledged team effort. And our kids were always involved. And so when we had a lobster fest experience, they'd be out back hucking and chucking. My boy Dan put the Rotary Club of Clearwater. We used to spend a lot of time in the South because Patty, her mom and dad lived in Florida, and we would spend probably 3 weeks in Florida throughout the year, and especially in the summer after summer school. And kids would always come to me with me to Rotary, and Dan or Kevin and Boomer just loved it. The Easter Seals program was one of the most inspiring experiences that one could remember. Projects, speaking one of our kids this week, Kevin said, "Dad, I remember I worked a coat check for Riverboat when it was at the Eaton Center." And so Rotary has touched our life in ways and have become lifelong teammates that are just phenomenal. The image of service above self is just one of a kind. I've been fortunate and blessed to have that have you as part of my teammates. Now we get to sports. Sports, I guess, has always been an integral part of life and who we are, and kind of sets us apart. And it's very clear that the element of sports and the impact it has is just incredible. And perhaps we notice it even more that we don't have it. We don't have a team to cheer for. We don't have a country to embrace. We don't have a team. And when you stop and kind of distill it down, you say, what is it about sports that sets it apart? And one of the great things that sports does is it gives us hope. Every day we get to live a new day. And win or lose, you get to play another game. And that instills in us. And then when you work with young people, and as I've had the privilege, sport has the basis of kind of the pillars and the foundation of some of life's most important lessons. Obviously, issues like morality. What's right? What's wrong? What are the rules? How do you treat your teammates? How do you build a winner? What is a champion? Everybody wants to win. Everybody wants to become a champion, but it's not easy, and you all know that. And in today's culture, the issue of morality and a moral compass is a side benefit of the times we're in, has given us all, I think, a chance to kind of refocus on that. What is important? What draws us? What's part of the journey that's really important? And again, I've always known that sport has been one of those, cornerstones that help us. The issue of integrity. How do we reach out to young people and to each other and just say, look, there's a right way. We not only have to do things right, we have to do the right things. And so to honor and respect the game we play, and therefore life itself, sport allows for that integrity to grow. And of course, sport always, I think, challenges each of us in our own way to integrate it, to release from within us that ambition. What we want to do, where do we want to go? What's important? How do we want to get there? That journey of life is a mystery, but it's so exciting when you have great teammates and wonderful coaches to inspire you, to lead you, to challenge you. So sports then became an anchor in my life, besides family and besides education and some community work, that allowed me to center and focus on some of the important things around life. And so then we had the birth of the Guelph Storm.
So Jim, let me ask you about the Guelph Storm. What was significant in building that franchise for you to think about, maybe this is something I want to do, and share with us a little bit of the high life and the low light of building that franchise?
Thanks, Marv. I think we had lost a team in 1988. It was the Guelph Platers. And Joe took the team north to Owen Sound, and actually fellow Rotarian Mayor John Council at the time put a group together, a collected group of, and said, we got to get junior hockey back here. So count me in. And then it just kind of evolved. But when we put the building the team, and some of you may recall, we acquired the Hamilton Dukes, the Dukes of Hamilton. Sadly, they were the only franchise in the history of the Ontario Hockey League and the Canadian Hockey League that in 1990 hosted the Memorial Cup, and they were the only team that never participated. And they never participated because they were awful. And the Ontario Hockey League did not want to be embarrassed on a national stage, allowing Hamilton. So that's kind of just where we were at. We purchased, they brought it to Guelph, and then it's one thing to bring a team. It's so important, though, I knew we weren't going to have this last chance, because we had a team here in the 50s, and they ended up becoming the Kitchener Rangers. And then Joe went north. And so you say to yourself, look, in sports, you get 3 strikes. And so you better do it right, or this community is they're bright community. They're going to say, oh, we're not going to do this. So we had 343 seasons ticket holders. And that was the challenge. How do we build it? But the most important thing in building it was clearly the people. The only asset you have, it's not your sticks, it's not your tape, it's your people. And we were so blessed and fortunate to have marvelous leadership. One of the things I learned in life forever is that you can apply to sports is every day you recruit. You got to be out there recruiting, and that recruitment process is so critical. Last fall, we had the honor to recognize Russ Hammond, who'd been with us for 20 plus years, and we had a number of alumni come back. And one of the players who came back to honor Russ that day was a fellow called Todd Norman, who's gone on to, ironically, be a teacher and a coach himself, but over a beverage that day, he said to me, Jim, he said, what I always remember was you used to use the phrase, and this is where you build with principle, first be the best, and then you will be first. And I was kind of taken aback, because I used to share quickly and quietly with our kids that there's always principles on which we're going to build this. And so the principles certainly being integrity and ability. And we always knew that talent that doesn't work will outwork talent that doesn't work hard. And so, kind of putting the principles together. One of the principles was always make sure you have a championship pedigree. There isn't a person that wants to dance, perform, sing, play sports who doesn't want to be a champion. And my experience in life was to only be a champion, you got to get surrounded by champions. You got to go get a bunch of champions who know what it takes and how to get there. And so that was always important. And it became one of the 7 criteria we hired our personnel. And another one was clearly professional. We wanted to hire people who had played at the very highest level, because then they knew what it took to teach young people how to play this game right. And one of the great things about the Guelph Storm and building it was Rotary had taught us about community. And one of the challenges that we're able to do with the Guelph Storm was when the captain was chosen each year, we'd say to the captain, now you have a responsibility. One of your responsibilities is to the community of Guelph, because we owe the community of Guelph the privilege of playing here. And the challenge we always gave our captains is you got to do a community service this year. If you're going to lead this team, you're going to lead it in our community. And so over the years, we've had marvelous captains, and I just want to highlight 2 that how they've continued that. If you know Cam Hillis, Cam is the present captain, just signed with Montreal, and Cam started this spring a thing called the Hillis Foundation. 2 years ago, Garrett McFadden started McFadden's Movement. And again, it's a charitable foundation to work with young people. And you know, giving back, when we started the Adopt a School program, I recall fondly, we had in fact, the very first player we drafted was a young 17-year-old, 16-year-old called Todd Bertuzzi. And Todd was a big, rough, tough kid from Sudbury in the mines, and had a lot of edges that needed some polishing. Todd didn't like school. Todd thought school should be at the hockey rink. And I recall fondly, we always had to engage him. And Patty taught kindergarten, and so one of Todd's early assignments to get him engaged in school and to tell him what he had to do as a teammate was Todd had to go read to the kindergarten kids. And from that, Todd learned how to tie a tie, put on a blazer. And you take the very simple aspects of life, because you realize that 0.5 of these kids are really going to be full-time professionals, but 98% of them are going to be full-time citizens. And so how do we prepare them for life and to be givers and, you know, people who contribute back to their own society and their own culture? I think I heard you also say about highs and lows.
Yes. Yes, Jim. And Jim, before I say that, one of the things that you said to me in our many conversation is that laughter is the language of saints.
Oh, yes.
How does that happen with the Hive? Tell me about laughter, especially the under 18 Team Canada experience.
Well, you know, that was, it was remarkable. As a little kid, I mentioned Father Dave Bauer. He started Hockey Canada as a kid. I always wanted to play for Team Canada. And I didn't get to join him until I was in my 50s. So a highlight, standing on the ice in Yaroslavl, Russia, singing "O Canada." And I just want to share with you, having collected a gold medal.
Yeah.
We were the first under 18 team to represent Canada, and that was clearly one of the highlights. Opening night here at the rink, at the new rink, first game we played against Kitchener. I mean, there's just so many highlights. The hosting Memorial Cup event here in the city, the only one that we were able to host in 2002. I think again, highlights, but the Team Canada one was, you know, you take a collection of 20 kids from across the country who've never played together. You get 3 days in Toronto before you head off to Germany in a pre-camp, and you get to teach them a system, what you expect. And you know, to go to the host country, Russia, that year had two names that I'm sure most will recognize. Had a kid by the name of Ovechkin, and they had another kid by the name of he plays in Pittsburgh. 17. I can't get Yager out of my head. Gino. And so they were playing in Russia for Russia, and this was a brand new. There was a lot of pressure. The Slovakia had beaten Russia in the semifinal. We played Slovakia in the final, and we ended up shutting them out. And it was just one of those moments where that was probably one of the great highlights. There's just been kind of so many. Some of the highlights are watching the kids you've had, like Jeff Bess or Jeff O'Neill, or, you know, Dwayne Hay play for Team Canada. Drew Doughty has gone on. Here's a highlight that I always thought was important, because we're able to integrate sport and education. We were proud as a franchise that our kids were not only the academic player of the year in the Ontario Hockey League, but they were the academic player in the Canadian Hockey League. So we had Manny Malhotra back-to-back OHL Student of the Year. We had Dustin Brown, Student of the Year, both in Ontario Hockey League and the Canadian Hockey League. So, you know, if you get good people and you surround yourself, good things will happen. And so those were certainly some of the highlights. There were a couple of lowlights or frustrations. I will never forget 6:26 of overtime in Spokane in 1998. And we lost in overtime in Memorial Cup Championship. And it was just one of those moments where, but again, you talk about that dressing room that day was just, it was sad. It was like these kids had put everything out and they had just missed it. And this is where sport and integrity of the game comes into play. It's so important to be able to realize that we had a 2-on-1 in overtime. And in overtime, you get very few chances. And they whistled it down on an offside. And it was an offside.
Wow.
And it comes back to bite us. But, we're grateful. And again, sport teaches us kind of the joys of life and the life lessons that are just phenomenal and are I'm so grateful for. And they bind us together. Mm-hmm. About a year ago, kind of where the journey is now. A year ago, coming up in about 18 days, we launched this thing called Teammates. And, Roger Lajoie, Chris DePierre are my teammates now in this venture, and it had become important over the years, especially on the recovery train from a heart attack, that you're not active at the rink or at the field, but you're still active in terms of supporting people. And a lot of people had a variety of needs, and people would reach out and, can you help me recruit so-and-so? And so anyway, three of us got together. We represent 45 to 55 and 65, and then I represent the 75 and older group. So we come from a cluster of differences. We put together one-on-one mentoring and coaching for people. We do 30-day program. We meet in person. We do weekly web chats. And like an old teacher, we teach. Try to assess where the person's at, what they want to be able to accomplish, and then work with them over the course. And then after that 30-day period ends, we clearly reach out and continue to be available to them. What do we do? Well, each day you can find us on Facebook or Twitter. We do an inspirational message. When I was in school, kids will remember I used to do every day as part of opening exercises, thought for the day. They may not have learned anything else, but maybe they'd remember something. We were in the learning business. Did you learn anything in school? When your parents ask you that, will you tell them this, please? Anyway, so we do blogs. It's been a great learning year for me because we do podcasts. I hadn't been in a studio to do it. Somebody said to me, 2 years ago, what's a podcast? I don't know. Is it you put flowers in a podcast? Like, what is a podcast? So we've done some podcasts. The clients and our colleagues kind of generate that interest where it's at. And then earlier this year, we decided, why don't we write a book? So we have a book in production now. We're going to take what we do and put it into a context of a book and actually a package, and it's going to be available for people. The one thing I shared with Marv is that any proceeds that come from any potential sale, we're going to donate back to a club like Rotary, because of the projects you do and because you're so community invested. This is just a stepping stone to reach out and to try to help the community and make sure that the community can benefit from what other people do and certainly be grateful for that.
Jim, that's so exciting to hear because, as you know, we can't do the work without support, and to have support like that would be tremendous. And as you continue through with teammates, coaching and mentoring, we're working through this pandemic environment. What are some of the relevance and what are some parallels that you see in how we go about learning about getting through a pandemic and something like COVID-19? I know you've shared some personal stories about your granddaughter, for example, you and her baking cupcakes together, different flavors across the miles, and the opportunity to tell bedtime stories and tell a joke. Can you share a little bit about that and how you get through with this pandemic and how others get through it? I'm going to put up the other slide around our world today as you talk about that.
Okay, well, I don't think any of us prepared for this. It's not in our playbook. There's no manual to deal with this. So when you look at what we're at, it's clear when you look at individuals and you check your own self out there. There's hey, we're dealing with something. This is a moment in history that is just unbelievable, and it's terrific. So we're blessed to have 7 grandkids, and so with each of them, you want to develop that kind of, and you can't hug them today, and you can't visit them. So we do projects, and we have drop-offs. And so with Emily, we do cupcakes. She got a cupcake book for Christmas, and so weekly, she bakes one week, I bake the next week, and we do cupcakes. And with Aaron, who's in Fort Myers, we do once or twice a week, just 10 to 15 minutes, and it's all about stories. And we read stories, we tell stories. I should also say with Emily and Katie, who are in Cambridge, we got to write a book. Said, you know what, Bob's good, you just write a book. And we got time, and you got some learning through the internet today, but let's take some of our projects and let's write a book. So we put an outline, and then, we'll get it published, and we'll go from there. But those special moments and I just encourage, especially, we just had 13 clients in April, and the landscape is so radically changed. Like, there's still people who want to grow, and how do you help them just be comfortable in this moment of anxiousness? I want to do a shout out to the good doctor, Anne-Marie. Like, when I say learning never ends, Anne-Marie every day posts on Facebook. And I find she's educating us about frontline workers. And I just take my hat off to her going in there. Our daughter is also a neonatal intensive care nurse, so she's on deck full. And it's been phenomenal to listen to their experience and the courage, because they haven't been through it either. And to be able to connect with individuals who have that, do that, inspire us, I think, is just phenomenal. So those family moments, and they continue to grow. How can we take this moment in time? I've used with the kids especially, and maybe as much for myself, is this isn't a marathon. I mean, pardon me, this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. We don't know how long it's going to be, and we don't know how long it's going to end. But it's life, and it's away we go. So what do we need? Well, we need a lot of gratitude. And so Melody Beattie suggested something that I think is significant, that I certainly share with clients. And gratitude makes sense of our past, brings peace to today, and helps us to create a vision for tomorrow. I used to always say that we need an attitude of gratitude. Then I realized we need more than that. We need to make gratitude a daily practice. Every day when we get up, or before we shut her down, we got to be able to say, my gosh, I'm ever grateful for whatever. But it's just so important to be able to say that, and to be able to kind of reset ourselves in the moment. And I'm so grateful for that. I think that we're going to slip to, thanks. I wanted to share, we said at the beginning, we got great teammates. So if you've done some of your lists, great. If you haven't, I'm going to encourage you to please finish them. Please finish them. And then I want you to reach out to your friend, your neighbor, your family member, your coworker, and I want you to tell them what a good teammate they are. If you can't speak to them, and that's okay, send them a card. We still like getting mail. It may take a little longer. But in preparing for today, Marvin invited me to join you in when Frank spoke a couple of weeks ago. And this is where teammates help us. I kind of distilled what he said, and I came up with some teammate lessons from Frank that day. Things like improve and grow, find your journey, measure everything. And in sports, we do that and in cooking, 3/4 in one day, we measure everything. Life is measured that way. It's so great. I I love when Frank said it's a thinking man's game, likes to win. Who doesn't? Everybody wants to be on a be a champion, build a champion. He talked about important skills, like when he was asked, and Murray, you may have asked him this question about important skills. He said personality. Like, wow. And one of my takeaways of the lessons he taught me that day was, just to reinforce, is sunshine always comes after the storm. And you know, we wake up and we're grateful for a new day. So that's my challenge. I do want to be able to express my deepest gratitude to each of you for this time. I continue to applaud you for the work you do in our community. It's so precious, it's so valuable. Thanks for giving of yourself and your time today, and above all, thanks for the privilege of your time for this few moments.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm going to open up the gallery. Look at all the hands going up. That was wonderful. That was really quite wonderful. I know we, President Carolyn has there's someone that needs to do a happy buck today, but I'm going to turn it over to President Carolyn for question and answers, because I know there are a few questions for you. But I just want to say personally thank you, and I'm glad that you're thinking about circling back and joining Rotary. I've already sent you the proposal form, so you see what it looks like now that you have some time on your hands. And I'm very excited about how close you feel about Rotary. I like that you talked about Todd Bertuzzi and the edges that need some polishing, and many of us, myself included, sometimes just need someone to be there to help us polish those edges. So thank you, Jim. Look forward to talking again, and over to you, President Carolyn.
Well, thank you so much, Marvin. Thank you so much, Jim. Thank you for sharing your journey, your inspirational words, your passion for both service and for sport, and all the life lessons you've learned along the way. And as a small token of our gratitude, we have inoculated 100 children against polio in your name.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for being
You
with us.
continue to give. You're the best.
Well, we are excited about recruit, and hopefully we see you at more meetings. It'd be absolutely wonderful.
Thank you.
I'm going to open up the floor to questions. We only have about 6 minutes for questions. So I'm going to be looking through the screen here. Put your hand up. And if I take too long finding you, then just unmute yourself and start talking.
Oh, I see Dr. Jones.
Oh, Dr. Jones, do you have a question for us?
Jonesy.
I had the wonderful opportunity to live close to where Jim lived. And I got to play football with Jim 60 years ago. And I would say to you, he was a competitor, he was a leader, and he always beat us. So I would say to you, obviously your life journey reflects the fact that you had that special thing that made a difference. And it's a real honor to say that I knew you way back then, and the opportunity to meet with you today again.
Laura, you're a treasure. Say, Mike, soikity choik. Wow. I miss you, Jonesy.
That seems like an unfair matchup.
Anybody else have a question for Jim?
Oh, I see a hand up.
Oh, Anne. Anne, go ahead.
Thank you. These are amazing words. And you've talked about supporting champions. What would you say that we do to encourage young kids in feeling strong about their capacity to be champions in whatever they take on?
Great question. I think with young people, you know, you want to help them discover what do they love, what do they love to do.
Yeah.
And if we help them discover within themselves that ability, then part of this to coach, challenge, and provide some support to help them accomplish, no matter what it is. There was a young lad, we had a stage band at Lourdes, wanted to be a musician. His name was Sean McCarthy. And Sean has gone on today to be an international guitarist. But what you do with any person is say, hey, what is it? I used to say to our own kids, what would you want to do if you didn't get paid? Like, what do you just love to do? And then away you go.
Yeah.
Because you'll follow that. But I think our kids need to be, they need to be challenged today to what I call, as I see our young people, because I still do a little work volunteering back in the football program at Lourdes, is we need a growth mindset. How are you willing to grow where? We need to be, I'd say, relentless. How do we teach them to be relentless? How do you pursue a goal, or how do you pursue and discover that so that there's some stick-to-itness, so that, so at the first hiccup, you don't go, like, you can't do that.
Yeah.
And Michael Jordan missed 4,000 shots. Babe Ruth went back to the dugout 7 out of 10 times. That's life. He became a Hall of Famer because he hit a ball 3 times out of 10. That's what. Those are the lessons that I think we need to continue to challenge it. So you hit. I mean, the gentleman Fred Smith at FedEx. There's Harlan Sanders was 65 when he got support to sell Kentucky Fried Chicken. Somebody finally bought his recipe. The founder of Starbucks got turned down 247 times at banks before 248 come. And those are the lessons I think we need to challenge our young people with, to say, okay, so it's a little hiccup, no problem. It's a little bruise, a little no, we'll walk through life with the scars. We didn't have plastic surgery when I was growing up, so we just continue to wear our scars. It's okay. We'll be fine.
And then we keep growing, so we learn how to do things like podcasts, right?
Whatever. Yes.
Thank you.
Whatever.
That's great.
Oh, thank you so much, Jim. That was a great way to end it with those words of inspiration. So really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Carolyn.
Well, our pleasure.